Georgia.
Mr. President, in deference to the chairman, I will be brief, but I come because I feel compelled today because the two amendments this body will be dealing with. One is the McCain amendment and another amendment later in the day dealing with underwriting, but I'll save the remarks on that for when those amendments are pending. I agree with Senator Chambliss and I commend Senator McCain. And I come from a lifetime in the real estate business, so what I talk about, I do understand its cause and effect in the marketplace. You cannot have responsible reform of financial services and leave out Freddie and Fannie. One of the reasons that, along with Senator Conrad, I created the Financial Markets Crisis Commission, which is now meeting, by the way, and will report back at the end of December, was I knew there were pervasive and redundant failures in the system that brought about what became a cataclysmic collapse. I understand the chairman's been under great pressure to bring this legislation forward, and I have great respect for the chairman and appreciate his work. I wish we had waited till the Financial Markets Crisis Commission reported, but we haven't. So let me just for a second address Freddie and Fannie and the McCain amendment. Freddie and Fannie filled the void the savings and loans created when they failed in the late 1980s. There are a lot of people who will hear this speech who will remember savings and loan days. Those were when savings and loan associations were chartered to make home loans. And with the exception of FHA and VA, they basically made them all. There were a few players, but not too many. Those entities, by the way, those savings and loans had 100% risk retention of every loan they made because their depositors put money in there for the sole purpose of getting a preferred rate of interest and for mortgage loans to be made to generate the income. But they went under. They went under because of a lot of factors. One was the federal government changing the rules under which they operated in midstream, which caused them to collapse. Freddie and Fannie immediately filled that void, and they did a great job for a long period of time by creating a secondary market for capital to be formed, put into mortgages, the mortgage be securitized, and the securities traded. And it worked for a long time. It worked, quite frankly, until a couple of things happened. One, until the government all of a sudden told Fannie it started having to own a certain percentage of what it called affordable loans, which later became known as subprime loans. In fact, Fannie Mae became the purchaser of record for the first subprime securities that were created to meet the congressional mandate to end up having these affordable loans, which made a market for those securities which subsequently were sold around the world. So I want to commend the senator from Arizona. What he brings before us is important. I don't know how you leave Freddie and Fannie out and talk about real financial services reform in the United States of America. If anything, they need to be a critical part of it. Now, I recognize this legislation portends there'll be a 2-year wind down. Unless they improve, then there'll be a liquidation at some point in time. But Mr. President, let me tell you what's going to happen if nothing happens. At some point in time, Freddie and Fannie will have to be liquidated, and a new entity will have to be created that'll fill the void that liquidation takes place. We're going to have the mortgage money in this country one way or another because America wouldn't be America without it. But we can't tend to have a black hole and an entity that can be used for political purposes or was used for political purposes to create a market for securities that ultimately fail and break down the financial market. I commend the senator from Arizona. I associate myself with the remarks of the other senator from Georgia. I thank the distinguished Banking Committee chairman for his time, and I yield back my time.
Mr. President.